Hello everybody, welcome to the Comic Game Movie Show. My name is Deshaun and today I am here to review Batman the Caped Crusader. Now, Batman the Caped Crusader is an interesting project that's been in the works for quite some time by the well-known legendary producer of the Batman the Animated Series, Bruce Timm. Now, a lot of people know Bruce Timm as, like I said, he's the guy who made the Batman the Animated Series. And for a long time, we had rumblings that he was trying to recreate that show, because apparently, according to Bruce Timm, he wanted that Batman the Animated Series, as great as it is, which Batman the Animated Series is arguably the greatest animated show of all time, better yet, the greatest animated TV show, superhero show of all time. But even he said that there were extincts that he wanted to go. There are certain character interpretations that he would have gone a different way, but the studios wouldn't let him go that far. He wanted to be a bit more darker than he even was in Batman the Animated Series, but obviously the studios at the time wouldn't allow him to do so. So Bruce Timm has kind of been in the low-key working on a project called Batman the Caped Crusader. And obviously the original project, he was going to have, you know, some of the more original voice actors come back to portray certain roles. But, you know, they decided to go a bit different. They decided to go very different. And this show is fun. Also, producers on this is J.J. Abrams and Matt Reeves produced on this. This, I believe, is basically J.J. Abrams, because people kind of forget, for a short time period there, J.J. Abrams was going to take over the DC Universe. He was going to take it over. But then things got out of whack. Things got crazy. And either way, this is pretty much going to be the last remnants of whatever J.J. Abrams agreed to have made. But this show was produced under him as well, and Matt Reeves. But this show is very interesting because while it is greatly reminiscent of the old 90s Batman the Animated Series show, which is a fantastic show, you should go back and watch it if you never have. There's a reason that the hype is real with that show. While it is that, it also harkens back to an older time. It harkens back to the original Batman design. It's very steep in the 1940s, where Batman the Animated Series took inspirations from the 1940s. This one very much feels like it takes place in the 40s / maybe even the 50s. It really feels like that. Gotham feels more like, and you know, they've always said that Gotham is basically New York and Chicago kind of combined, and given more of an Art Deco / Gothic look to it. But in many ways, it's Chicago and New York combined together, you know, given a Gothic look, and that is Gotham. This one is more like it's Chicago, the vibe of it. I mean, not just from the fact that most of the villains, or a lot of the villains he's dealing with, are mobsters. Because people forget, Batman Year One kind of addressed this, and a couple other Batman movies have. Even Batman Begin addressed this at the beginning. Batman's primary villains, when he first started, were the mob. He was fighting the mob. You know, he was fighting mob bosses and shit. It's not until later on when you start getting Joker and Penguin and Two-Face and Riddler, and you don't start getting those people till later on in his career. I'm talking maybe 3-4 years into it. And also, for a long time, at least in the beginning, at least for the first few years of him doing it, people didn't know he really existed. People thought he was a rumor. He wasn't, people didn't know what to make of him. They didn't think he was real. Because, like I said, he's just fighting mobsters. And at that point in time, he hadn't really done anything to get the loud reaction. Because, he's just fighting mobsters. Not really until he starts fighting villains like Penguin and shit, that it becomes abundantly clear. Oh, no, this guy is real. Because villains like Penguin and Two-Face and the Joker and villains like that, Clayface, villains like that are so over the top that there's just no way he cannot be seen fighting these guys. And that's when he starts getting more recognition. But this show it isn't Batman Year One. It's more like Batman Year 2 or 3. Because he's not making slop. Because sure, he does make mistakes, but the mistakes he make in this show are the mistakes of the Bruce Wayne character, lack of empathy at times. Because at times he gets so soaked into the Batman of being the Batman that's kind of the shit he fucks up on. But he doesn't make silly mistakes with the criminals. He doesn't get caught off guard. None of that shit really happens. Except maybe one time, but even that was understandable. But this show takes place in that time period, so you don't got any high tech. This is a low tech. This might be the most low tech Batman you've ever seen. He doesn't have any of this crazy technology. He has to rely mostly upon his detective skills and his abilities to sneak. He doesn't have that supercomputer where he could just ask, hey, I hate to quote Lego Batman, but hey, pewter, he doesn't have that. He doesn't have that. He has to fucking, for lack of a better word, he has to sneak into the police precinct. Half the time when he finds information on someone, he either is stalking an officer, he's either eavesdropping on an officer who's investigating whatever he's looking into, or he's snuck into the precinct and took a peek at files. Because he can't, like I say, he can't just pop the computer up and hack into police databases and shit, because they don't got that kind of technology yet. So it's a very on-the-ground Batman. He has to really be a detective. They really lean into it. It's a noir, a lot of it. A lot of this show is like a Batman noir, in a way, because it is literally, because he has to be such a detective, because he doesn't have the technology and stuff to rely upon. The weapons and stuff, he has things that are even advanced for the 40s, but even then it's kind of pared down. Like the Batmobile isn't this crazy car. Now it's a cool looking car, but really what the Batmobile is, it's just an armor-plated version of like a sports car, or a sports car at the time. But, it's nothing fancy. It don't got any, rocket boosts, or it don't got any weapons that's shooting out of it. It's just a well-armored, fancy-ass sports car. Which I don't mind. I don't mind that. Like I say, this is the most on-the-ground Batman ever. Now, while so much of it is familiar, Tim does something very daring. He does something very ballsy by changing so much about the show. First of all, to be fair, Commissioner Gordon has mostly been depicted as white. In most of the things, he is depicted as a white man, except in the latest Batman movie, except in The Batman. And Gordon's another one of those characters who, it really doesn't matter what kind of race he is. It doesn't actually change anything about the character. In fact, changing his race you could just take another, perspective on it. And so when they make Gordon black, which is not a big deal, but the thing is, so what it means, Barbara's going to be black. But the thing they did different with Barbara is they aged her up. Now, they have done this before also. Speaking of the Lego Batman movie, the Lego Batman movie also aged Barbara Gordon up. Because, she's she's near Bruce's age, instead of being this girl who he's mentoring. And they did the same thing here. Barbara is seemingly in her mid-20s, maybe late 20s. She's a defense attorney. So she's a defense attorney, which is a totally different thing. Barbara's never been a defense attorney, I don't believe, in anything. So the fact that they aged her up and she's a defense attorney, and they sort of kind of subtly, through the course of the show, set her up to be a potential love interest to Bruce, which works when they age her up and make her a defense attorney, obviously, because, even near the end of the show, I don't want to spoil anything, she even starts wondering about this whole defense attorney thing. So it's cool to have this dichotomy of Barbara sort of being, like they say, they kind of set her up as the love interest. Obviously, Selena Kyle shows up in this too, but they do an interesting thing. They sort of do a, I don't know if you guys watch, if you guys seen the Netflix Daredevil show, you probably have, but in that show, around season 2, they introduced Elektra, and they had, in the romance between Matt Murdock's Daredevil and Karen Page started to heat up. But he had this one woman who represented Matt Murdock and this other woman who represented Batman. And not Batman, Daredevil. And they sort of do a similar thing here with Barbara and Selena Kyle. It's much more subtle, but it was an interesting dynamic that they don't usually do with Batman. So that was different. Obviously, some people have heard about the gender-swapped Penguin. Now, I was like, okay, we'll see how this goes. And I gotta tell you people, it's one of my favorite interpretations of the Penguin, because the Penguin is, at his core, a pretty simplistic villain. He's an iconic villain, he's a fun villain, but at the end of the day, he's just a mobster. He's a mobster with a cool umbrella. And that's pretty much it. But the Penguin is so defined by his inadequacies, by his jealousness, by his, his little dick energy in terms of his ego, his arrogance. He's so vain. You know, what I mean? The Penguin is he's just jealous. He feels inadequate. He's just he's that kind of guy. Whereas Oswalda Cobblepot, the female version of the Penguin, she is the opposite of him. Now, granted, she still looks like him. She's a bigger girl. She's got the nose, but unlike Oswald Cobblepot, that version of the Penguin, who kind of like, you know, was like sensitive about all that kind of shit, and like he's just kind of covering it up in his suit. She shakes that ass. She's singing songs at the Iceberg Lounge, which is now the Iceberg Cruise Lounge, that in the middle of Gotham, which is pretty smart actually. You can get the fuck out at any time. But yeah, like, and she takes it, and it changes the context of the Penguin. Making the Penguin a woman changes the context of that character, because once you make Penguin a woman, you can go down different avenues, right? Like, oh, this is a woman. Like, as many people would know, there's not a lot of crime boss females. Though there are crime boss females. But as anyone would tell you, if you look at any of these documentaries on mobsters and crime bosses, the female crime bosses are the scariest crime bosses, because they're women and they know this that chronic criminal world is dominated by powerful, scary men. So in order to survive in that landscape, they gotta do some fucked up shit. I mean, you listen to some of the shit some of these female crime bosses do. So then you kind of go, okay, I can see it. And then she has kids. Oh my God, there's a sequence that because she has kids. As, you know, she's a woman with all this confidence. Of course, she'd probably, like, I love that. There's this interesting aspect to her with the kids and the mama. Oh man, making the Penguin a woman was one of the most interesting, fun concepts. And I was like, yo, this is just fun. And it just adds a different dynamic to that character. Also, a big change is, I would probably say, big one, and a lot of people are going to be really upset about this, is Harley Quinn. Not only do they make Harley Quinn Asian, but this version of Harley Quinn is sort of like she was combined with Hugo Strange. Because the original Harley Quinn is a ditzy, therapist, optimistic. The best versions of her, she actually did go to school. She actually did graduate. She got everything. The original version of her shouldn't have been a therapist. Like, the original version of her was fucking her teachers, and she just got male teachers, and she fucked all her teachers to get her degree. And she shouldn't have been in a room with the fucking Joker to begin with. But the best version of her, she really was a psychologist. She really was. She fell in love with the Joker. He charmed her. He charmed her to the dark side of thinking. This ain't that Harley. This Harley is a lot like Hugo Strange. She is calm. She is calm and collected. She got some Hannibal Lecter-ish thing going. She works with these powerful clients, and and if the clients don't learn from their lessons, because she's got all these powerful men confessing all these terrible things to her, and it broke her. It fucked with her, as it would, right? If you had a powerful man confessing to you how he let these people die to protect his business interests, and he's just like, thanks, Doc, I feel so much better about that. I'm gonna keep going out and doing it again. And this version of Harley is less of a villain and more of a fucked up vigilante. She's more like a Jigsaw, honestly. She's like, because she's kidnapping these powerful people and like killing them and forcing them to give away all their money to charities and shit. Like, it's nuts. This version of Harley is far scarier than any other version of Harley. This version of Harley didn't need the Joker to make her crazy, didn't need the Joker to give her purpose. This version of Harley found her purpose all on her own. And the show is very conscious about it. Now, like I said, the show mostly takes place in like the 1940s, at least aesthetically. But there's a lot of interracial things. There's a lot, there's white people too. I mean, Harvey's still white, Bullock's still white, Batman, Bruce is white. But there's still a lot of white people in those spots. But it's more interracial. There's a lot more different varieties of races in certain positions that they probably wouldn't be in that specific time period. And they're just very conscious. They even go out, there are no real damsel in distress moments. Like the closest thing to a damsel in distress they even had in the whole show, even she kind of stood proud. Not proud, I mean, she's almost died, but even she didn't, completely back down. They're like I said, they're really conscious about it, how they handle certain situations. This show's gonna piss a lot of people off. It is. Because of how interracial it is, the gender swapping, the agency they gave to certain characters, it's just gonna piss some people off. But to me, I loved it, dude. By the time the show wrapped up, I was like, dude, I hope Amazon Prime greenlights the next second season, because this show was awesome. Between this and X-Men 97, man, I'm just having a blast with this animated stuff. You guys know how much I love my animation. Anyways, thank you guys for joining the Comic Guy Movie Show. Please remember to like and subscribe. And I'll see you guys on the next one. I give Batman the Cape Crusader 10 out of 10. Anyways, thank you guys again. See you on the next one.